Welcome to Dhaka Tribune Presents Straight Talk, one-on-one conversations with newsmakers and opinion shapers. I'm Dhaka Tribune editor Zafar Sobhan, and I'm here this evening with the founder and executive director of Friendship, Runa Khan. Friendship is a SPO, which is a special purpose organization, not an NGO. So Runa, welcome to the show, and why don't you tell us a little bit about what does it mean to be an SPO rather than an NGO?
Thank you, Zafar, and I'm very happy to be here on the show with you. So an SPO is a social purpose organization. A social purpose organization, what we felt, is an organization that works for the profit of its beneficiaries to address a social or climate issue, which is today a reality. And I found this name to be more positive than saying we are an NGO, which starts with a non.
I agree with that.
Really we are what we are not. And so I want to describe what we are.
Yes, no, it makes a lot of sense to me. And I don't quite know how that nomenclature came into being, how everyone's starting to think of themselves as NGOs. I mean, yes, that's a technically correct definition of what they are, but it's such a small part of what they are, really. But no, this makes a lot of sense to me. So we'll talk a little bit down the line about Friendship and the work you're doing. I've always been fascinated and deeply sort of engaged with Friendship's work. I think it's an incredible organization, and a lot of kudos to you for that. But let's circle back a little bit and let's talk about the current situation in Bangladesh, especially in light of the work Friendship is doing in the communities which Friendship works hard to serve. The last several months in Bangladesh, as well everywhere in the world, I'm sure, has been sort of dominated by the coronavirus crisis. So I'd just be interested if you would like to reflect for a few moments on how that has impacted the work Friendship has done, and what have you learned, and what has the organization really learned through this crisis about its core mission and the kind of work it likes to do? If you could share that with us.
Thank you, Zafar. Zafar, as you know, that Friendship has been working in the most vulnerable, hard-to-reach communities for the last nearly 20 years. And when I started working, these were areas which climate was not in the forefront in those days, and I didn't go into these areas thinking they're climate impacted areas. I just went into these areas because
they were underserved. Yeah,
absolutely. They were so underserved. I found services totally lacking, and I had communities who actually didn't have any services, reaching them. Ad hoc, yes, but not really dependable services. So I started.
I remember. You so many years ago now, when you flew me out to see the work which Friendship was doing many years ago now. It's eye-opening. You see some of these islands with literally nothing, no electricity, no paved roads, no permanent structures, yet people are living there. Yeah.
Yes, and I think this touched me very deeply because I saw this, I was very angry, and then I thought this was like really unjust, and I felt I could do something. I started. So these are the areas we're talking about, and these are the areas that 100% of Friendship's core areas are today, I'm discovering, 100% are all climate impacted areas. And we needed to change our programs to suit, innovate, adapt programs to reach the people in different ways. And it was really a challenge. It's very difficult starting in remote areas, difficult to reach, economically, socially, so underserved. But I think what happened was that we had to have a very, very focused vision. And the focused vision was that there was no way that these communities could ever reach the mainstream if we did not work with deep, true understanding as to how to bring dignity and hope to these communities. And which, it sounds a very simple thing. It sounds a cliche term, maybe, that everybody wants to bring respect and dignity, but it's not that. Every single decision I made, every single decision Friendship made had to imbue the community with strength and empowerment. And that could be done because they needed to survive on their own, because these are communities far away from us. And I think the way that we worked must have somehow worked. I say somehow, but each step has been extremely well thought of, and it worked. And this is what we found during COVID,
Yeah.
during the crisis. You see, what we did was, of course, by January, February, we all saw what the world was coming to. And of course, no country was saved. Every country could
Sure.
reach in some way or the other. And in Bangladesh, I felt that, well, given the kind of 170 million people on a country which is 1/4 the size of France, which is like really small, and not being as
we were anticipating all kinds of catastrophe. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I started working very early on. Towards end of February, I started preparing the organization. Not only our staff, because I knew that we needed to continue services, but also started building our central services so that I had a good idea of, the number of staff who were over 60. So that I didn't want to put them in the front line. Staff who had diabetes and were sick, I didn't want to put them in the front line, be it in the field or in the head office. We got the PPEs. We gave them all, well, I believe a bit in homeopathic medicine, I have to tell you. So I gave them that. And I also, of course, we gave them zinc and vitamin C and, prepared them that when the government gave the lockdown, they were there on the field. So we hardly had a day when we had to stop, stop. And we continued. And the communities, we started, we prepared what we had to deliver to them in terms of knowledge, understanding, awareness, and tools. For example, we kind of gave them money for their phones so that they could correspond with us better. Things like that. And we did this just before the lockdown. So we had reached and we were prepared. And Zafar, this I would say is the strength of organizations in Bangladesh.
Yeah.
Bangladesh being in the front line and getting disaster after disaster, when Amphan came in, and then the floods today, the floods are incredibly bad, you see? And
yes, that's right.
How are we surviving in the way we are? It's because I think we know that that life and death, we are on a very thin line, and it's up to us to survive.
No, this is fascinating what you're saying, because you're absolutely right. I mean, if you'd asked me 3 months ago to foresee what does the future hold for Bangladesh, I would have said, as many other people would have at the same time, well, we're the most densely populated country in the world. We live very crowded. Our public health systems are not very good. We have all kinds of other problems, which means that we're going to be right. We're probably the most vulnerable country in the world to the coronavirus crisis. And this is going to be a big problem for us. But actually, if you flip it around and you say, well, all of that is true, but at the same time, Bangladeshis are no stranger to hardship. We are no stranger to challenges. And if there's one thing which all Bangladeshi people feel, especially the Bangladeshis who are from marginalized and underserved communities, is they are resilient. They are adaptable. They are flexible. And so they were actually able to take this crisis and, sort of adapt themselves and adapt their lifestyles and their livelihoods to do it. And I never really thought of it that way, but I'm sure you're right. That is exactly actually what has happened. And it's also no small credit should go to the organizations which work with them, because, I think certainly Friendship has had a great deal to help build this resilience over the last 20 years. Of course, at the end of the day, the lion's share of the credit must go to the individuals, because this is the grit that people have. But at the same time, you also need a helping hand. I remember years ago when I went on my trip to the Charles, one of the programs Friendship was undertaking, which in fact I wrote about it in an article I wrote afterwards, because it still has struck me, is an adult education program.
Yes.
Program. And I remember, just in the night, we were on a small island listening to all of these fisher people and boat people learning their kokogos. And it struck me, it affected me, because these are people working really hard to build, I don't know, as you said, it's a self-sufficiency, it's a dignity, it's someone saying, well, I'm going to take this into my own hands and change my circumstances. But of course, to recognize that that was the kind of program which was necessary, I think was a great step by Friendship.
Thank you, Zafar. And I think you've hit a core here. We as an organization have the responsibility of not bringing in projects and doing the projects, but seeing where the gaps are, in the system which is already existing. Because if we can just fill in the gaps with very little, you can have a synergetic effect.
Yes.
And your adult education program, it's very interesting. The story, how I started, we had this cleaner who used to clean on our ships. We have the floating hospital ships, as you know, and they go from island to island, and we've built a 3-tier healthcare system which leaves no one behind. So you're either on the ship, or you're in the community, or you are in the, or you're part of, you're linked to one of our Friendship Community Medicaids. It's a 3-tier program. So our ships were going, from one island to another. And there was this woman who used to come and sometimes sweep and clean. And when the ship moved, she was on another island. And I saw her once, and she was carrying earth. She used to carry earth for one of these programs. And she told me that she did not think that she was getting paid well. I said, well, why don't you keep a calculation of how many times you do it, so you're paid? And she didn't know how to read and write. So I said, okay, call all the women who are doing it and let's talk. Who knows? There were about 20, 25 women. None of them could even calculate per day what was the number of times that they were having, bringing the earth. Yeah. So I thought, how are we going to talk about empowerment and economics and growth if the basic thing is missing?
Basic literacy, basic numeracy,
Absolutely. So then I started adult education program, and it caught on because there was this incredible need. And Bengalis, you travel all around the world. I travel all around the world. Zafar, I have an incredible admiration for the people of the soil of Bengal. Somehow they are exposed to so little, but on that little, they build like this. Their courage, their resilience, their sense of innovation with that little that they have, it's incredible. And I think the fact that they take their life in their own hands, for me, I can never leave them behind because of this, No,
I agree. I think to live in Bangladesh and to be a Bangladeshi is to constantly be humbled. Because to see around you, I have, and I moved back to Bangladesh as a 10-year-old. And so in many ways, I came across Bangladesh initially. It was a new country for me. And so I had to figure out, I was coming from somewhere else, trying to figure out, how do I fit in and stuff. And the first thing which I noticed was, as you said, was the courage of everyone around me. You saw the circumstance, and I'm talking 40 years ago. So now Bangladesh is a very different country than it was 40 years ago. And still we have a long way to go, but I think we have achieved a lot. 40 years ago, I still remember as a child, and it occurred to me that when looking around, I was like, I could never complain about anything in my life.
Absolutely.
Because so much has been given. And a lot of us in this situation, when you look at people and you look at how hard they're working to make something for themselves, make something for their families, and how the tiniest little things which you can do or they can do for themselves make all the difference. And of course, and that's the work which Friendship is doing. Other organizations have been doing marvelous work in Bangladesh as well. Absolutely. And I really feel that we have this. It's part of our national temperament that we do all try and do something for the country. We're not just looking at it from an individual perspective. I mean, this is, like I said, it's what makes living here so worthwhile and rewarding. Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit more about the specific work which Friendship is doing, especially in the last few months. If you could share a little of that with
course.
us.
And Zafar, you see, having working in these very remote and challenging areas meant that all our programs had to be geared for, and to be effective, we needed to innovate the programs in ways where delivery was of a certain quality, because we work with 5 very, very strong values, which is integrity, dignity, justice, quality, and hope. And we interlink this. And to do this, quality is a very important thing, because I don't believe in poor solutions for poor people. The poor cannot work with poor solutions. And in this capacity, of course, our healthcare, I would say, is, I think, even when all the hospitals were closing down, the friendship hospitals in these remote areas were open and receiving people. And we put in, of course, all the needed, isolation and distancing, and all that was done, and awareness programs. What was also interesting was our education program and our inclusive citizenship program. In our education program, we are now having a grade up to grade primary level. We have teachers who are all below high school. In the chores, you cannot get teachers who have done metric. And we have been having, over the last 15, 18, 16 years, we've had some of the best results in the country, I have to say. In the areas, all the national merit-based scholarships have been given to friendship in last year, for example, in our working areas.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's and these teachers who are all below high school, and this is a strength, I would say, of Bangladeshi people. Of course, we helped them to train and all that, but they got trained and they did it. Yeah. And we then expanded to high school. And of course, we couldn't get teachers. So we went online. We have, through a digital studio, we recorded 2,000 classes for grade 6 to grade 10 with only a mobilizer in the class, somebody who just monitors a bit and this, and in the class. And those lessons, as soon as the COVID struck and the schools were closed, we were very happy, because the government took these in their Kishore Batayon and the Shongshod TV, and they could use our recorded classes. So that is now, so we launched our YouTube channel and linked it up with the government channel. So I think that was a very big step in our education program, which we did. Yeah. And our inclusive citizenship program, we have paralegals in villages whom we have trained. And these paralegal became frontline workers along with our community medics and all that. But the paralegal aides started linking the community with the government. They started accessing the government funds. They started, along with us, of course, we helped them, and but they became the frontliner, and we started food banks and mut, where we started encouraging people to donate. Yeah. Who are the people who are donating? Somebody has no cows and the other person has got 2 cows. That's the rich man. And that's the poor man, But yet they started contributing and giving food to each other, mobilized through friendship. It's to such an extent that the government started giving food to our food banks because it was working so well.
Talk to me a little bit about that, about your partnership with the government in a lot of the initiatives you've done. How's that worked out over the years?
Okay. Zafar, we are a very simple organization, all right? Our goals, our vision is not to have a huge organization, a very rich organization, big organization. That's not our goal. Our goal has always been the field, the communities, and the field. So what we have done over the years is try to be exemplary in our work. Our healthcare system works. Our EPI, which is Child Immunization Program, for example, it's the government is doing it, UNICEF is doing it. But what we did was we took the people, the TNOs and people from the local government, took them and showed them that these children are not getting EPI. And from a 15% within a year, with just filling in the gap of carriage, taking the government people, We even have a desk in one of the offices, which is very nice because we help them to coordinate, and they come along with us, and they are very willing to do so. That is amazing. They are willing to come with us and inoculate the children. And we have had nearly 98% for the last 8-10 years, in the chores, inoculations in the chores. We work with the agricultural department. We link up the chore people with the government services which are available. Hundreds and hundreds of our people have been trained by the government. I think, if you work with having no agenda behind your work, and I think by now I can say this on TV, because I think by now people have realized, the government officials have realized, the government in the field has realized we don't have an agenda. I think everybody wants to be part of it. And everybody wants to be part of every success. And I think we have been, and I think we have been greatly helped by the government. Even this time, other organizations.
This is the type of thing, the work Friendship does, the work anyone does. We can't do it by ourselves. Everything, and especially a crisis like this, it requires everyone to work together. The private sector, the non-profit sector, the government, the media, all of us. You see, because then if we don't, if we're stuck in our little silos, we're not going to really achieve much, unfortunately.
We are not going to, because we have to realize that Dhaka, Chittagong, and all the big cities are only like 5-10% of the population. The population is out there. And whatever happens to them, sooner or later is going to happen to the richest, the most powerful, So we need to take care of them. And that's, for me, extremely important. And it's so much so that other organizations who are in Gaibandha and Kurigram, when they are wanting to give relief, the government officials are saying, please, you can only do it if you take the Friendship paralegals or you work with Friendship. So even in this crisis, I was so proud. I did not realize that this could happen. So, we have had a very good and a solid, respectful relationship with the government. And I re-emphasize the word respectful. If somebody or something doesn't work, we just move away. And then when it works, we come back again. It's okay. You have to take it.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, let me ask you a little bit. Now, of course, the core mission, which when you started Friendship, it was actually, if I'm not wrong, it was a medical mission. You started with the floating hospitals to provide medical services, and it branched out from there to education, helping, everywhere, really. But it started with healthcare. And of course, the coronavirus crisis is at heart a healthcare issue.
Absolutely.
So how have you found that, in fact, if you could talk just a little bit about these communities, because one of the things I find is that living in Dhaka, working in Dhaka, we're a little bit Dhaka-centric in our vision. The truth is, and I'm just being honest. And even when we talk about outside of Dhaka, we think more about, the big divisional cities. We don't think as much about marginalized communities like the Char communities you work with as much as we ought to. So tell me a little bit about how the virus hit the community and how the programs which you have had in place were able to help people sort of deal with that particular crisis we're facing right now. I'm very interested to see how things happened there, because I'm familiar with how things have happened here in Dhaka, the big cities like Chittagong and Sylhet, but I'm less familiar with that.
Yes, Zafar, I think the main, we were not so worried when the islands were in isolation. When the islands stopped being in isolation, which is when the people started migrating back home. And that was where we panicked, because it was so easy to spread. And this is the reason why one of the first things we did was awareness. I think we put in more than a few 100,000, 800 or 900,000 messages reaching people over the telephone, and and having Skype calls with our the people of Friendship who are in the fields. For example, our paralegals, our FCMs, our parasolar vets, our para vets, our agricultural, even the vets. So all of them, and parasolar technicians are para vets, etc. So we kind of started talking to them and giving them awareness campaigns over their cell phones, and telling them to take this to the field. And what we also did was we distributed masks in thousands. I think we have produced more than 100, 200,000 masks. I don't know, maybe 120,000 masks, which have been also sent abroad because we needed to get money. So we've also exported them, and more, about 70,000 were all in the field.
You produced the masks, you said?
Yes, that we have. Oh, okay. So we have two affiliated organizations, friendship. One is called, it's TREM, it's Mushti actually. And that is where we help people to get financing. And the other is Nodi, which is a social enterprise of friendship. And we do, your adult people who got educated in the chores after a few years wanted jobs. So we started opening the first craft industries in the chore areas, and we do weaving and dyeing, all natural dyes, azo-free dyes, and we produce fabrics and saris. We've even opened the shop in Dhaka in Banani Road, off Road 11. So it's called Friendship Colors of the Chores.
Yeah, I think I've seen that. Yeah,
you've seen that. So what we did was we transformed all our fabrics and started and we have got also sewing centers. So we started masks, producing masks in our factories and sending those abroad because we needed money to run, so we exported them. And the others, we cut the pattern and we sent it thousands of masks to the field. Each island, we knew how many people had sewing machines, and they were sent the masks to distribute it in the island. So all the people had masks by mid-April, end of April. Our communities all had masks. So this was a very big step, and it was very innovative because we cut the pattern, we gave them the elastic in boats. They were.
You identified early on that masks work, because nowadays people are saying there's a lot of back and forth, but masks really make a difference.
Zafar, I felt that what could we as a poor country do? Nothing is 100%. Masks 20%, medicines 20%, isolation another 20%. If we could just put these 20% together, it would at least go up to 50%, and we could save some lives.
It's something.
Something. Right. And now it seems masks are are coming up, and our masks are all cotton, 100% woven, hand wove, which means that the meshing is very it passes air, but it's 3 to 4 layers. And it's on a Japanese design, so it's very effective. And we are selling in thousands in Europe now.
Okay, well, that's marvelous. Now we're almost out of time, but I just wanted to talk just a little bit before we go about the fact that Friendship is actually now an international organization. So if you could talk a little bit about about how that works and what that means.
Okay. Working in these very remote areas very earlier on, I am not from the development sector, so I didn't know the norms very well, I guess. And I think that worked in my favor.
Maybe that was the benefit.
Yeah, I think that kind of worked. So what I thought was, it was extremely difficult to be donor-driven. A donor would tell you what exactly the project has to be, and you do the project. I did not think that was effective at all. So I decided to become an international organization where donors would become partners and have a say, and also have a kind of they would understand the importance of getting a project working in the long run, which is true sustainability, which means exactly filling in the gaps properly and not according to a pre-made mandate. So I came to Luxembourg in 2004 and opened Friendship International. And for Friendship International, and I started working with the Luxembourg government. And then, of course, I opened one in France, one in UK, one in Belgium, one in Holland. And what we do is and I am also co-chairing Friendship International, which actually is a global team.
Yeah.
So Bangladesh is part of this global team, and we were the first organization in the world actually to start from the south, and we are recognized as such, which is great, to start from the south and open an international organization in the north. This was way back in 2004, and finally 2006, early 2006, we opened. And then it doesn't work as two separate entities, but it works like, big NGOs that you know of, Save the Children or something. It works as one umbrella organization, a global team with branches in these countries. So, and it works, I think, very well. People feel responsible for the money they give, because giving is as much a responsibility as receiving. You see? And people have to be responsible for the money they give and for the work that they get in turn. And this builds a much stronger partnership.
Okay, that's fascinating. On that note, Runa Appa, I'm going to have to call it quits this evening. I wish we had another half hour. I feel like I could have this conversation for a long, long time. I always learn something new when I speak with you. I'm always inspired when I speak with you. I'm always encouraged. Anyway, thank you so much for sparing the time. I think this was a really eye-opening discussion. I think our viewers learned a lot about the work which Friendship is doing. I think they also learned a lot about how the coronavirus crisis is being dealt with in the Chor areas around Gayabanda, Jamalpur, places like that. So I think it was a really worthwhile half hour for our viewers. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Zafar. Very happy. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. And thank you to our viewers. We hope you've enjoyed this as much as Runa Appa and I have. I never have as much time speaking with her as I would like, but this has been a great half hour. Please do join us again. Join me again next Wednesday, same time, same channel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.